And so worked for a man named Lloyd Anderson. He's the owner-operator now of Chick-Fil-A in Independence and has been a career mentor of mine for 18 years. I'm super thankful for his influence in my life. But went off to college, worked a little bit at Chick-fil-A, graduated college, and found myself in a cow mascot costume on Black Friday in 2010. And back in those days...
High point of your career?
Well, it's a good point. It was the defining moment of the career, as I thought, is this really what you want to do with your life? Because I was tired. It was like 2:30 a.m. Black Friday shopping was still a thing, and that was our busiest day of the year. And so I thought it probably doesn't get much worse than this. And in that moment, I thought, yeah, this is what I want to do with my life. I really believed that it was what God had for my life and his plan, and I was having fun at it. I thought, man, it probably doesn't get much worse than this. So at that point, after graduating college, I was continuing to learn the business from the ground up. And so that was about 2010, and got a couple promotions, and ultimately was in Nashville, Tennessee at the time. My high school sweetheart was finishing college there, and I was getting ready to propose. And I proposed, and she said yes. And that's always a good thing when you propose, right, guys, is that she says yes. And so anyways, Courtney and I got married in 2012, and shortly thereafter got into a development program with Chick-fil-A, where I traveled the country and was an interim manager over different locations. So think like a substitute teacher. So anytime there wasn't a permanent owner-operator, they'd send us in, we'd watch over things, clean it up, get it ready for the permanent owner-operator that they were selecting. So that was about 18 months. I traveled the country, Philadelphia, Voorhees, Pennsylvania, or Voorhees, New Jersey, Las Cruces, New Mexico, and then Norman, Oklahoma. And after being in Voorhees, New Jersey, and Las Cruces, New Mexico, I was so elated when Chick-fil-A said, hey, we think you should apply to be the owner-operator of Chick-fil-A at Sooner Mall in Norman, Oklahoma. So that was a shopping mall food court. That's where our business started. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But small opportunity, 23 team members, about 400 customers a day. But ultimately got selected, and it was a dream come true to be an owner-operator of a Chick-fil-A. And yet, being married to my high school sweetheart, we just continued to dream of being back in Kansas City amongst our extended families. And so about 2.5 years later, the opportunity for Summit Fair came available, and so we were able to apply for that. So we're franchisees, but you have to apply to relocate, and then you get evaluated. And God opened the door for us to lead this restaurant in March of 2017. And so hard to believe that's been 9 years. 10 years on March 1st, okay. So, or no, 9 years on March 1st, yeah. Math is hard sometimes. So it's been a wild ride. So that business started with about 100 team members in 2017, about 1,200 customers a day, and the business has more than tripled since then. And just last week on Thursday, we opened up our second location of Chick-fil-A Oldham Village. And so super exciting, still riding that high to be here with you guys, and super excited for that development and what's ahead. So a little bit about the company and how we've been involved in the community. In preparing for the grand opening, we ran some numbers. And one program we have is called the Chick-fil-A Shared Table. And our Chick-fil-A Foundation made a $25,000 donation to Harvesters to celebrate that grand opening that happened last week. But day in and day out, twice a week, Lee Summit Social Services comes and picks up our extra food. So our chicken, we are really focused on the quality of the chicken. We want the taste of the food to be really good. So once it hits 21 minutes, we're no longer serving it. We've got an automatic timer. So this isn't that gas station fried chicken that was cooked last week and sat under the heat lamp, right? Okay, can I get an amen? So anyways, we end up with a lot of extra food, and that gets donated to Lee Summit Social Services. And we added up the last 5 years, we've crossed the $500,000 mark. So super excited to be partnering with Lee Summit Social Services. And then team member scholarships. Just this year, we announced about half of them last week. We had some team members that were invited to serve our community leaders. Some of the chamber leadership team was there, and they thought they were coming to work, and they did come to work, but we also got to tell them that they were scholarship award winners. So we still have a few to announce, but this year the Chick-Fil-A Foundation awarded $46,000 in college scholarships just in Lee Summit team members alone. So super, yep. All right, and we're going to do a little company overview video. Let's see if how we're feeling with technology.
Throw away everything you know about fast food. This is not prepackaged frozen fried chicken. At the end of the day, it comes down to, are they receiving quality food? Because that's what's going to bring people back.
We're not chicken business. We're a people business. We're a relationship business.
Operating a Chick-fil-A, in my opinion, is being like a player coach. There are times when you'll find yourself on that breading table, you will find yourself on fries, because there are a myriad of things that happen.
So I want to present you with a $25,000 Chick-fil-A scholarship.
I want to be able to reach the community and make some difference in the community's needs. Just make the city brighter by our presence.
So that's a little bit about the company as we are today. To do just a little quick overview about Chick-fil-A as a whole, started by a man named Truett Cathy. And he's absolutely my hero, just an incredible man. But first became an entrepreneur selling Coke bottles door to door in Atlanta, Georgia as a 7-year-old boy. So that's where our hospitality story started. Was Truett realized that he could buy a 6-pack of Coke bottles for $0.25, sell them each for $0.05, and realize a 5-cent profit at the end. But how he was able to differentiate himself was he decided he was going to do ice cold Coca-Cola. So think about the summer in Georgia. He had this red wagon. He was icing down the Coca-Cola so it was ready to drink right then. And that was the first kind of, I would say, seed of hospitality or second mile service to go above and beyond, to not just do the bare minimum that everyone else was doing, but to find ways to really enhance the experience for his guest. He ended up having a paper route and would try to learn where each customer wanted their newspaper. So did they want it on the front porch? Did they want it tucked in behind the screen door? And he would personalize the experience for each of his customers on the paper route. He ended up going off to war, him and his brother, but came back, and in 1946 they opened the Dwarf Grill. And so it was called the Dwarf Grill because of its small size, and so that's what it looked like. And this was across from a Ford manufacturing plant, and they had multiple shifts at this manufacturing plant, and so he was in business with his brother Ben. And so Truett would work 12 hours, and then his brother would work 12 hours, and then Truett would work 12 hours, and his brother would work 12 hours. And so at the end of the first week, they were tired. And it was not sophisticated, but they just said, hey, tomorrow's Sunday, let's close. And so that's where it started. Being closed on Sunday it was actually back in 1946. It wasn't super sophisticated or religious. They were just tired. And so in 1964, he began experimenting on this chicken sandwich. His mom used to fry chicken in a cast iron pan, and she put the lid on, lock in a lot of the moisture to make it nice and tight. And he started creating he called it the chicken fillet sandwich. Or no, he called it the chicken steak sandwich. But this idea of like a premium breaded fillet, like a beef fillet, right? So he was experimenting, and one thing that doesn't get enough airtime for sure is we went from 46 to 64. This man died, a very wealthy man, but he was frying eggs and cooking cheeseburgers for almost 20 years, just him. It was not, it's like a 20-year, an overnight success in 20 years. And that often gets lost in the story. The company didn't start really growing until it became Chick-Fil-A in 1967. I can't believe they cut off this photo. This is my favorite photo in all of Chick-Fil-A. So 1967, we're in Hateville. No, we're not in Hateville. We're at Greenbrier Mall, close to Hateville in Atlanta. And this was when it first became Chick-fil-A. So no longer the dwarf grill across from Ford, but 1967 was the first time he called it Chick-fil-A. So called Chick-fil-A because he needed to trademark it, and the capital A was like a dairy signature as grade A eggs or grade A, and then the word filet, he liked that it was like a beef analogy. But this is my favorite photo because there's a woman in the bottom right-hand corner that has a child on her lap. Now this is 1967 in Georgia. That woman does not have shoes on. She is at the shopping mall in 67 with no shoes. And it's my favorite photo of all. I can't imagine going to the shopping mall with no shoes. So 67, it became known as Chick-fil-A. We were only in shopping malls till 1986. So Truett was like 60 years old by the time we ever built a single freestanding restaurant. And just incredible, for a man that ended up owning, one of the top restaurants in the country to really not start getting momentum until he was 60 something. So started in 86 with freestanding restaurants. Actually, the man that ran this restaurant, Super Special, was ultimately the decision maker that selected us to be the owner-operators of Chick-fil-A Oldham Village. So that was pretty special, pretty cool connection. He ended up retiring, and so it wasn't at any of our parties. He was enjoying a fishing trip in retirement, but that was a pretty cool connection to the original freestanding restaurants there in '86. So Kansas City was a little unique. The brand didn't get here till 2006. Olathe was the first restaurant, set all sorts of records, and then we've added about one restaurant a year for the last 20 years. So Chick-fil-A Oldham Village is number 20. But ultimately our business was built by a man, Truett Cathy, who says we should be about more than just selling chicken. We should be a part of the customers' lives and communities in which we serve. What I love about Truett is he decided that he was going to use his business to grow people and not just use people to grow his business. And I think that posture and that heart is what ends up, this feedback loop ends up being great business as well, being a great business decision as well. So that brings us to today, to Chick-fil-A Oldham Village. We're about 3,000 locations nationwide. I'm sure one has opened this week already, but we may still be the newest Chick-fil-A. This last year we opened in Singapore. We've been in Canada for about a decade, and where else are we? We've got a few locations in England, United Kingdom, so kind of exploring some of those other areas slowly. But Singapore, we're jumping way into the Far East there, and they call that the gateway to the East. So, yeah, super thankful for the company as a whole. This slide is a little dated, so and overall, I think the one thing that's relevant is we're actually 11 years in a row after 2025 the ACIS, so the American Consumer Satisfaction Index, ranked Chick-fil-A as number one in customer satisfaction. So, and so here we are with the topic today of why does hospitality matter? Goodness, anyone have an industry that's going to be disrupted by AI? Yeah, I mean, just wild. I was on a Zoom call with a guy that's, his company's in conversation with, he's like, I'm talking to Anthropic today. And he was saying, like, he oversees 500 people, and he's like, we're building a business that's probably going to eliminate our jobs. And just the psychology and the psychological load of that. I'm like, well, why build it? Well, if you don't build it, someone else will. But why does hospitality matter? Marcus Buckingham said something that just cut to my core. He says, I don't want to live in a world where everything functions and nothing flourishes. This idea of human flourishing, I think we all know that it's true. You know, with any small business, if you just want to compete on technology, the big guys are going to beat you. They're probably already 5 or 10 years down the road. Like, when it comes to guest experience and hospitality, at Chick-fil-A we say we want to be radically convenient, but also remarkably human. Okay, so it's like we're threading the needle there, and that would be my encouragement, is find a way to thread the needle. Technology is obviously going to continue to be part of our lives, but so is humanity. We saw that in COVID, the work from home, everyone working from home. Like, we need people, we need each other, we need human interaction. And so I believe that's the foundation of why hospitality matters. I think it was Thomas Jefferson that said, the handshake of the host affects the taste of the roast. If you're just competing on data, on just hardline results, that's essentially a price war for your customers. It's very transactional. But I tend to agree with the idea that people forget how much they paid, but they remember how they were treated. In high school, I opened up a bank account with Bank of America, and I think I did make a mistake, but I remember I thought I made a deposit, withdrew, and there was a fee. It was my very first transaction with Bank of America was a fee. And I called for them to get it waived, and they wouldn't do it. And suffice it to say, I've done a decent amount of baking the last couple decades, and not a penny of it's been with Bank of America. I don't know. Was it a $25 fee? Was it a $30? I don't know. But for me, it was the principle. I remember how they made me feel, and I kind of made a decision. I can be pretty stubborn, obviously, but made a decision there like, hey, if I've got an option, I'm not going to do business, right? So people remember how they were treated. Why does hospitality matter? This presentation was given, this is a very cool venue, but it is not the coolest venue that I've given this presentation. When Whiteman Air Force Base called, the commander said, hey, we would like to improve our customer service across all lines of Whiteman Air Force Base. And so we did 6 different presentations with them, and talked about why hospitality mattered. That there was the commander felt like there was a disconnect between my job and operational goals, right? So when there's a certain airplane doing a 39-hour round trip last week, does the smallest role matter? Are they doing the bare minimum? Think about even someone in the cafeteria that's not taking food safety carefully. Well, that pilot ate that food. If that pilot's got an upset stomach on a 39-hour mission, we've got a problem. And so the commander wanted to see that across the whole base. Now, happy to serve the Air Force Base, happy to talk through it. military culture is not something that you change in 6 conversations about Chick-fil-A. So I don't know where they're at. But the in-cockpit tour as a thank you for our service was probably the best thing we could have ever done. So just thinking about that last week. By the way, they have iPads mounted now. The actual dashboard is like so outdated. Now they just have an iPad that's mounted on those. So pretty crazy. All right, so why does hospitality matter? Next we'll go into who do we learn from? So we obviously believe hospitality mattered at Chick-fil-A. It's the restaurant business. And so some of these ideas come from Horst Schulze. He's with Ritz-Carlton, or he was with Ritz-Carlton as the president. There's a great book called The New Gold Standard that talks about Ritz-Carlton's strategy. So that was maybe the best training session that I've gotten to be a part of, is they said, hey, for you to really understand hospitality, we want you to experience it. So they paid for us to stay at a Ritz-Carlton and experience it. And they say the most important person in that hotel is the bellman. That's the kind of quarterback there, is the bellman. And so one thing they really focused on with Ritz-Carlton, there were not a lot of great stories, but the first was their seamless check-in experience. I recently went to Las Vegas with my wife for the first time, and we had a 30-minute check-in experience, and I just was appalled at it for a first experience. But one thing they talked about was going through the details of the guest experience in hospitality. So the car pulls up, the guest gets out, they open the door from him, and the front desk says, good afternoon, Mr. Smith, good to see you. And people are like shocked. Like, how did you know it was me? There's 300 people in this hotel. Well, the bellman has a walkie-talkie and a radio. They pull the bags out of the trunk. They look at your luggage tag that has your name on it. They radio into the front desk, says Mr. Smith's coming in with his family. Small things, but can be really impactful from a hospitality standpoint. The bellman also talked about unexpected opportunities. And they had a family that was there. This was in Buckhead in Atlanta, so it's a business hotel. It's not really a family hotel, but that they had multiple noise complaints, noise violations for a room. There was someone that was unhappy that these kids were jumping around. And so he said, okay, instead of kicking them out or moving them, they went down to a conference room. They took some folding tables. They flipped them on their sides. Someone went and got some hockey gear, and they ended up playing hockey with the kids. The staff and the kids played hockey in the conference rooms for them to run around and burn some energy, rather than dropping the hammer and having some sort of formal noise complaint or noise violation. But ultimately, our biggest steal from Ritz-Carlton was my pleasure. They started it. It was them that did it. And Truett went and stayed at a Ritz-Carlton hotel, and he said, I like that. And so we get a lot of credit for it as our service signature, but it was actually Horst Schulze and Ritz-Carlton. Horst was also, I'd say, probably the second most tangible thing he impacted. He was speaking to our organization, and if anyone's heard of him, he's German, and so very aggressive German accent, doesn't say anything lightly. And at that time, it was common to use some silk flowers in the restaurant, much cheaper than fresh flowers. And he just said from stage, he was like, only fake people use fake flowers. And it kind of put us all on notice, okay, back to the fresh flowers next week, guys. So that was the second thing. It's fresh flowers. We don't put any of those silk things out there. And then the last lesson that we learned from Ritz was their CRM software. So everyone has, or most people have a CRM, but they are religious about it. So, and the whole team is involved in it. So if the, who cleans your rooms? What's it called? Housekeeping, yes, thank you. Housekeeping sees dirty workout clothes on your floor. They'll make a note enjoys health and fitness, or if there's running shoes, they might bring a running magazine if they see you with running shoes and put it in your room. the smallest like observations and nuances. There's some crazy stories of them ironing the newspaper and ironing socks. I don't know if that still happens as much, but observing and then taking notes on their back-end software, and then that allows them, now they've got a little more margin than most businesses. They've got some margin with their, but allows them to really respond to those opportunities and tailor their experience to those guests. All right, who else have we learned from? Will Gerarda. Anyone heard of Unreasonable Hospitality? He kind of took the world by storm. So Will went on this journey of, I think it was called, let's see his restaurant. Was it Madison Park maybe? New York City restaurant. And he had the goal to be the #1 restaurant in the world, and he achieved it. So he explained to our group, he since sold the restaurant, but explained to our group about the top 50 restaurants. There's an award. There's an award show for those restaurants, and once you get to that level, it is the best of the best. He said the food is all perfect. He talked about a cooking technique that they refined for 7 years for this cooking technique. What Will specifically talks about is being unreasonable with our hospitality. That ultimately what got him to #1 was not just the food, but how the guests experienced their brand, how it experienced their restaurant. And then with that, how it changed the industry. And so he told a story. They have a lot of people that travel to New York City just for meals. You know, they may travel internationally. And so what often they heard was, oh, you know what? We didn't even get those I Heart NYC shirt. And so they began to listen and look for opportunities to really connect with the guest. I don't know how expensive it is, $300, $500 a person, whatever it is. But then the idea was that they have a closet of resources as they see those opportunities that come back up of things where they have the toolbox there ready. And so they'd have a stuffed animal with the I Heart NYC bear or shirt on, and they give it to the guest. Or he said, we're a nice restaurant. We have a lot of proposals. And so a lot of engagements happen at his restaurant. And so I guess he did a collab with Tiffany Jewelers to have engagement champagne glasses that are provided. And he said, I was able to convince Tiffany to donate them. Like this was a win-win, and that, hey, like they have these Tiffany champagne glasses and there's going to be photos on every single person. And so if someone gets engaged at his restaurant, they give them complimentary Tiffany champagne glasses. But his most famous response to the opportunity was a group of diners that said, you know what, we've done this restaurant and this restaurant and this, and we didn't even have a New York City hot dog. And they have a culture in which that waiter left, went down to the street, got a New York City hot dog, took it to the chef and nearly lost their life. And the chef cut it up into thirds, put some ketchup and mustard on it, and served a New York City hot dog to these guests after saying, shucks, we didn't even have one. So what is the #1 restaurant in the world serving a New York City hot dog? It's the unexpected opportunities to care uniquely for those guests. That's Will. If you have a chance to hear him speak or to listen to any of his recordings, he's absolutely phenomenal. And so now he brings us to Chick-fil-A. All right, so training will start. Hospitality at Chick-fil-A, when a guest says thank you, what do you say? My pleasure. So it's a service signature for us. So we've kind of made it famous. But more than that, we hope it's a mile marker in our culture. We hope that it's a kind of cornerstone for us, that it's a posture of our heart, that we don't have to do this, but we get to serve. That one phrase at Ritz-Carlton was, we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. Me being willing to serve you does not make me a servant, but I can honor you and provide dignity to you and serve you but that doesn't mean that I'm a servant. So we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. So at Chick-Fil-A, we call it second mile service. And that's how we talk about hospitality and customer service. And that actually comes from Dan Cathy. Truett's son was our CEO for a while. And he's since retired, and his son, Andrew, now leads the company as CEO. But came from actually the Bible in Matthew 5:41. So in the Roman era, it was a law that when a Roman soldier showed up to your house, you had to clothe them, feed them, provide them a place to stay, and walk with them, escort them for a first mile to carry their bags and help them. So people really loved it. Not really inconvenient when those Roman soldiers showed up. And so these guys were trying to challenge Jesus and get out of it, and was like, well, so what should we do? And Jesus said, hey, don't just go the first mile, but go the second mile with them. And so to go above and beyond the bare minimum, to go above and beyond your customers' expectations. And so there are some things, at least in the restaurant industry, that where there are people that really appreciate that. And so this may be different for you. I encourage you to get to know your customers. But those that really appreciate going above and beyond. And so for us, we did some research and found that there are 3 groups that really can appreciate the extra help. And that's families with young kids, elderly, and handicapped. And so when we have a guest of all abilities, we'll try and go the extra step to open a door or provide whatever unique opportunity to help them with their experience. It's a little different than when, say, I'm by myself. When I'm by myself, I don't need someone to carry a tray or open a door. Like, I'm okay. So understanding those unique groups within your business that can appreciate and will respond well to that opportunity to go above and beyond. So there are 3 elements of hospitality at Chick-fil-A. First is genuine. It's got to be genuine. One thing about our service signature that we have to train our team on is, hey, it's got to be genuine. Try not to make it a robotic, my pleasure, right? When it's inauthentic, when it is, when it seems fake or plastic, it doesn't land well. Or when you're doing it out of obligation, it doesn't land well. So this is kind of a cultural thing, right? Like there's a little bit of cultural impact. Like it has to be part of your company culture. You have to kind of select for it from the beginning. It has to be normalized. But I would say the best thing is it has to be caught as well as taught. So this approach to hospitality has to be something that as a leader that you're doing and displaying. So if I want my team members to clear the trash off of the table for a guest, you better bet when they're on their break, I'm going to go offer them a refreshed beverage or to clear the trash off their table. When we went to New York City for the first time, the whole trash system in New York City is a racket. I mean, there's so many people, it's a whole thing. So in the basement of the restaurant, they have a trash refrigerator so it doesn't stink. So you have to load up all your trash bags because they don't want it up at the curb, like in Times Square or in these high dense areas. So all the trash goes out at 3 a.m. Okay? It's a whole thing. And we produce a good amount of trash at our restaurants, serving that many guests. And so it goes in the trash refrigerator, and someone's got to get it out of the refrigerator on the curb. And someone caught, it was grand opening night, our CEO. It was not a good photo. It was not a photo op. It was genuine. But he was there at 3 a.m. moving the trash to the curb in New York City. And so did he know it was going to get caught? I don't know. But he was there doing it and observing the guy for a number of decades. It was genuine. It was real. And so what that communicates to the team is, right, we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And someone's got to take out the trash, so it might as well be the CEO of a $20 billion company. Like, that's just how he approaches it. So there's a bit of a culture here So you can't really wish for everyone else to provide great hospitality if you yourself aren't willing. But it's got to be genuine. The other thing we want to do with hospitality is make it proactive. You want to almost be aggressive with hospitality, in that you are not just responding, but you're thinking ahead. It always blows my mind when I'm about to sign some sort of large contract and there's not a pen provided. Like, if you're gonna put a contract in front of a customer, like, they're probably gonna need a pen, right? And that would be a great opportunity to put your logo on it, and then they keep it, and then they remember you, So thinking about being proactive with your customers and what are they gonna need. So for us, it's like, if they order waffle fries, they're probably gonna want some ketchup. Or if they order some food, they're probably gonna need some napkins. So for us, the standard, the goal, and sometimes we hit it, sometimes we don't, but is that every guest has 100% of what they need when we put their food down. So if they order a salad, we're not thinking, oh, do you need a fork for that? Or did you bring your own chopsticks? Like, of course they need a fork. But there might be a few nuances there where that's not obvious, where not everyone's using it, but you want to think through and be proactive with what your customers or your guests need. You want to anticipate the needs they have. And so moms are next level. It's amazing watching some of them in our restaurant when they'll have a baby on the hip, one in the car seat, and then they're balancing the tray with and so with our team, right, you think, oh, they've got an 18-month-old that's eating with them. They're probably going to need a high chair, right? So you're thinking proactively about what they might need, and right, you have all those resources ready to go. So you've got the teddy bear in the closet, you've got the champagne glasses in the closet, you've got all the things they might need. And then personal. That's the last element is personal. For us at Chick-Fil-A, we try to use the name twice. The asking for your name at each order has an operational benefit, sure, but more than that, we want it to be more of a relationship. We want it to be more less of a transaction. Goodness gracious, order 105, order 105. Who enjoys that? And just shouting it everywhere. So personal with names, right? That we remember those names. Not to get too personal here, but there's a really cool story, a letter that was written to our leadership of a customer that had decided he was going to end his life. And he said, I would like my last meal to be Chick-fil-A. And the high school team member, when he walked in, goes, "It's John, right? You were here last week." And it was that moment of using his name that he no longer felt invisible. He no longer felt irrelevant. He no longer felt worthless. Just because some high school team member used his name at Chick-fil-A. So if it was just a technology order, that's where it's yeah, the computer screen doesn't know that. The computer screen doesn't care. But if we can be radically convenient and remarkably human, we want to be personal with hospitality. We wanted to tailor it to them. This is hard, especially with younger people, with soft skills. They're incredible with soft skills, or with hard skills. If you want to do this and that on your phone, they got it. They can tell you in a New York second. What needs some more help is the soft skills. And just as a room full of adults, can we stop griping about it and teach them these soft skills? Can that be our work as adults to help them with that? can you join me in developing some of those soft skills and conversational skills? Because they need some development, but let's not just complain about it. Let's do some work with it and help them and coach them in that. There's a book that I haven't read because I think I got the whole message in the title. It's You Can't Text a Tough Conversation. And so I reference that book a lot with them. And I don't know how you turn, like someone turned one sentence into a book, but I'm like, guys, like you can't text a tough conversation. Here's how we'll approach this hard conversation. But personal, soft skills. For us, it is an opportunity. If someone is going to spend $200 or $300 with us on a catering order, that's a really good customer, right? Like they're spending a lot of money. And so for them, that's a lot of food to carry, right? So we want to help them out to their car. And in that, it's not just operations, it's not just transporting stuff from A to B, but our hope is that the team member is going to start building a relationship. Hey, where's this going? Oh, you got a sales event. Any sales events coming up next week that we could serve you with? Right? It's an opportunity to build that relationship. And then the last part about being personal is someone else in our industry that has U-turned recently. Anyone noticed with Starbucks or followed them with their new leadership and how they've changed kind of recently? So Starbucks was leading the industry in mobile orders. And they were one of the first, and they had the highest percentage of phone orders. And what they saw was it became transactional. It was that customers were walking in, getting their coffee, and not saying a word to the baristas, and the baristas not saying a word to the customer. And so suddenly we go from this relationship with my local barista who I love and sees me every morning, and oh, how was the soccer game last night? Oh, it was good, yeah. And suddenly it's just transact. And so Starbucks has done a major U-turn where they are writing the names back on the cups, writing encouraging messages back on the cups, and so really making it more of a personal experience. And I think it makes a difference. So every once in a while I'll have coffee from somewhere else. So radically convenient and remarkably human. I think it's a great standard. Yes, we've got technology in our world. Yes, it's part of our lives. How do we do both? How do we thread that needle and provide the hospitality, the human interaction, but also use technology there? And so what about you? What are your thoughts on hospitality for your customers? Even if your customer's another business, maybe it's a person, but are you going to compete with the big guys on technology? Or are you going to compete with them on our relationship? If you're a real estate agent, do you really want to compete with the discount brokers in the price wars now? Is it really just who can charge the least amount? Is that really the business model? Or is it who can build the relationship for the next sale and the next referral? Or insurance industry, like claim time is game time. I was with one broker, and how they made me feel during claim time really affected my loyalty to that brand. What I thought I was buying peace of mind, then the claim came through, and suddenly I'm calling an attorney, right? And so that hospitality. Do you need 5 steps on the robotic phone tree? And we have a phone tree, so I'm not getting to it. But do we need 5 steps, or can just 1 step, right? Where's that hospitality in the relationship? And so the question I would ask is, how can you go above and beyond? What are some steps you might take? So here's a couple ideas. Is to invite a trusted audit. Invite someone that can go through your process and give you some feedback. Ask them for that. I had a local pastor ask me to come audit their church. I said, well, I've never audited a church before. He said, well, good, because I've never asked someone to audit my church before. And so then we check in at the kids program with our kids, and they say, how'd you hear about us? And I'm like, and here I am, about to lie at church. We were just driving by. My second encouragement would be to ruthlessly eliminate friction. Gosh, a pet peeve of mine, like you hand me a stack of forms for whatever business, and I've now written my name and date 15 times. Like it's the same stack of forms. This happens at the doctor, right? Like they're all on the same clipboard. You should know what my name is by now. But to ruthlessly eliminate friction in paperwork or in the process. And then altogether, to prioritize the customer. Ultimately, that's the person that is paying the bills. That's the person that is the reason we have jobs. So to prioritize the customer. So thanks so much for having me. I hope it was enjoyable. Oh, one last thing. I knew this was happening. One last thing. Sorry. Rachel's here. So in the spirit of hospitality and generosity, you're now working at Chick-Fil-A. So Rachel is handing out some coupons for each of you. And the little envelope of coupons, it is now your job to spread some love and cheer and hospitality. And so I've got to put you under oath. All right, so everyone, right hand up. So I promise that I will not use these coupons myself. That I will share them with a friend or a colleague. And when they say thank you, I promise I will say my pleasure. Love it. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys.